All right. Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life, the podcast. You're listening to Author's Corner, where we highlight and showcase our local authors. Today, I'm speaking to Trish Roberts, author of The Anger Myth, Understanding and Overcoming the Mental Habits That Steal Your Joy. And today, we are going to be talking on the topic, what causes anger, and is anger good or bad? Yes, one of my first questions, I'm going to get into that. So stay tuned. Welcome, Trish.
Hi, Myrna. It's nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Yes, great topic. And I can't wait to learn about, unpack this with you. All right, guys, so let me give you a brief introduction to the anger myth. Are you feeling overwhelmed? In the anger myth, transformational coach and happiness expert Trish Roberts offers a step-by-step guide to creating the life you desire by changing negative mental habits. She shares her breakthrough five-step tame and reframe method to transform your anger and its seven cranky cousins, which are disappointment, annoyance, frustration, jealousy, impatience, guilt, and resentment, into the calm and constructive action. In the anger myths, will teach you why anger is never useful and always relays false information, ways to identify anger in all its forms and the true emotion it disguises, techniques to quickly transform anger in any situation without repressing your emotions, and more. Anger is a big topic. So if you guys want, if somebody said to you, you should go to anger management classes, or your spouse is always telling you that you're angry, then this is the book that you need to read. And stay tuned for some of the things that Trish and I are going to talk about today. But I always operate from a place of curiosity, and I have been told by coaches, I'm a life coach, by coaches and mentors, that anger is a good emotion. It's a useful emotion because it gets you moving. Like when you're angry, you want to do something. So in Trisha's, bio for a book, she says that anger is never useful. So let's start off right there, Trish. Tell us, is anger good or bad, and is it ever useful?
That was a great opening. So, first, I don't like to qualify it as good or bad. It is an emotion. We're all going to experience it. It's a matter of what do we do once it shows up. Once it shows up, is it going to do you any good? The answer is no. Now, sometimes you might think, I'm really motivated when I'm angry.
Right.
And that could be true, but I think of it like a broken clock. A broken clock will tell you the right time twice per day, but it is not the most efficient way to tell time. So, so there are much better ways to be motivated
True.
than through your anger. And one of the big problems with anger is that it lies, it relays false information. So when you make a decision that's rooted in anger, it is always the wrong decision.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah, but you started with the anger myth. That's the myth about anger. People think that it's great and it's going to help focus them, and they'll get their energy pointed in a great direction. But it's just always the worst way to go about it.
Hmm. All right. So let's stay here for a minute. So let's say that someone is um sitting on a couch, going through life without really making an effort. They're in the couch potato cruising zone, right? They're cruising on the highway. And all of a sudden, someone makes them angry, right? So they're motivated to get up and do something with their lives. I don't know. I can't think of a scenario. But you're saying that that is, the emotion that they're feeling is lying to them. If we were to give a scenario, um, you're in this marriage. Let me make one up. You're in this marriage, and your husband is treating you like crap, or you've decided that you're going to stay because he's not really bothering you. You guys are living your own little lives or something. And one day he does something that really boils you, right? And then you make a decision to leave or something. So let's unpack that. Are you
Yeah.
saying that the emotion that you feel there when you're going to leave? Because this is what the coaches are saying, that anger moves you. You're saying that anger might be telling you a lie. Let's unpack that.
Well, it could be telling you a lie because we don't know why you're angry,
Okay.
or the details of that. But in the book, I teach a five-step approach to anger, right? So, say your husband does something, it makes you angry. The first step is to acknowledge your anger, right? To realize that you're having this feeling. The second step is to take a breath and put some space between you and your anger before you do something stupid, and to give yourself some, oxygen to the brain to kind of process. The next step is gearing up your imagination, which is developing some empathy. So, in the situation with your husband, we didn't really define what he did, but whatever he did, he's human too. At some point, you loved him because you married this person. So, you're working through um, developing that empathy and compassion. So, you're creating some space and bringing down that reactive part of yourself, before you go through the process of figuring out what your next steps are. Because the next step might absolutely be to leave this person, and that's fine. But you want to make that decision from a place of intelligence and from a rational place, as opposed to what, in this example, what you might see often is somebody gets angry, I'm leaving, I'm never coming back. They're out the door. And then a week later, they're right back doing the same thing again because they didn't make the decision from a rational place. So that's hopefully that that
No, no,
clarifies some of that.
no, that was actually great because I've heard that never make a decision when you're angry. And you're right. Never make a decision to leave your husband or something that's going to, impact your life. Um, when you're angry, you calm down and you stay in that situation and calm down and think of it with a rational mind and all that. But what I wanted to get to is that you say that the anger emotion is usually false. So in that scenario, how can the anger emotion be false?
Well, the anger is giving you false information. It's a lot like if you're drunk, like you're intoxicated and you think somebody's really attractive or you think something is really good, but you're really not of your right mind. So anger is the same way, you're not of your right mind. So maybe, maybe your husband did or said something and you had an immediate anger reaction to it without gathering the data or really knowing what you're talking about. Um, Anger always gives you wrong information. Even if, say, you're driving and somebody cuts in front of you and you're like going off the handle with this person that you don't know and maybe making decisions that are not in your best interest, giving them the finger, stopping short in front of them. You can be doing really dangerous things when you're angry because you're not of a healthy and rational mind in that moment. So you need to get yourself out of that mind before you can make a decision that's going to benefit you.
Yes. Actually, I agree with that. I agree with that totally. So, yeah, I was just wanting to unpack it so when for anyone is listening. But yes, when you make a decision out of anger, not necessarily that the anger is lying to you, but when you make a decision out of anger, you're always going to pile stuff on top of it that's really not there, right? Because you are going to the extreme, and you're right. Maybe not getting all the full information, you're going to jump to conclusions and you're going to be angry and you're going to say they always do that or they're, you know what I mean? So I understand where you're saying now that
And it's not that the emotion is a lie. The emotion is real. It's how you feel, but it's incapacitating you so that you're not able to work through the data that you're receiving when you're angry. Like even disciplining children. You don't want to discipline your children when you're angry,
right.
which is something that people don't realize sometimes. Because when you're angry, that's when you might be hitting them. That's when you might be saying things to them that you do not mean, that later you're going to want to take back. Same thing with your partner. You're doing things at a speed that is beyond your ability to process that information. So the first thing that I would say to your audience is when you feel that anger, don't get mad at yourself about it. It's fine, it's normal, it's human, but then slow down. Slow down.
Yeah, yeah. Good advice. Good advice. Very, very true. So yeah, so to summarize that, even though anger is a good emotion, it gets you from complacency, that's probably the best word, from complacency to action. You've got to, calm down and make sure that the action that you take is the right action and you're not taking that action based on false information, false data. Right, exactly. I love that. Very good. All right. So, one of the other things you say is, anger and, disguises itself. And also its seven cousins. So, how can we identify anger in all its forms? And the three emotion that it disguises. If we want to stick with that same scenario where, your husband or partner yeah upsets you and you're saying the first thing you said is I'm leaving, and then you calm down and realize that whatever, so
Yeah,
yeah, let's
well,
talk that
so
through.
so the first thing, you don't have to be angry to go from complacency to action. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And in my book, I introduced the idea of the subtler versions of anger. I call them anger's seven cranky cousins, and they are disappointment, annoyance, frustration, jealousy, impatience, guilt, and resentment. And it's so important to draw attention to that because a lot of us walk around saying, well, I'm not angry. I'm just mad all the time. You know what I mean? I'm just constantly annoyed, frustrated, and jealous. And we'll walk around being miserable and not recognize that these are subtler versions of anger. So that's one thing. How do you? I think we know how to recognize that. The thing that we don't recognize sometimes is when anger is masking something else, and that's typically what it will do. So your husband comes home and he does that thing that you hate that he does, and what it's masking in that situation is probably really hurt, that your husband doesn't respect your wishes. Maybe you told him this thing before, I don't know if he's cheating on you or coming home late or he left the fork in the sink, but whatever that is, it means something to you that he doesn't love you the way you think you should be loved, or he doesn't respect you, or he doesn't listen to you. So it's really this hurt and this pain that is showing up as anger. And the tricky thing with anger is it makes us feel empowered, like you were saying. It makes us feel like we can have this change, but it's making us feel empowered at the very point when we are our weakest, because it's like we're intoxicated. So we feel strong and we're stupid kind of at the same time. And it's just a recipe for bad decisions, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I love the cousins. Wow, because you might think that jealousy is not really anger, it's just an emotion where your self-esteem is being hit, or some of the other ones, impatience, guilt, resentment, those type of things. So
And I can break them down just a little bit for your audience. So, like, jealousy is very simply when you're angry, someone has something that you don't have. Maybe they have the house or the boyfriend or whatever. Impatience is anger when you have to wait. Resentment is this anger that's stretched out over a long period of time. It could be 10 years. You still have this low simmering issue with something. So there are these little subtle versions. The book goes into them.
Mhm.
Um, but hopefully that helps a little.
Okay, good. But I was focusing on the jealousy where um you think your husband might be cheating on you, so you're jealous, because you're insecure, not
Ah,
necessarily jealousy of someone has got something that you don't want. So
right.
yeah, so I'm trying to think how that's the same as anger, but
Yeah, so jealous. Yeah, I would in the book, the jealousy we're talking about is somebody else has something that you want,
okay.
and you're feeling jealous in that way.
Mhm.
Um, Jealousy with that situation with your husband, I think is more of an insecurity.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Right.
Yeah, unless you have reason. And then if you have reason, then it would be, why are you with somebody who makes you feel like you're not important?
Not important and things like that. All right, good. Yeah,
Mhm.
I just wanted to highlight that one.
That's a
So
good question.
But yeah, thank you for explaining about, the resentment simmering and, and all that. So that's great. All right. So, where does anger hide in our body and what is the source of it? A couple years ago, I was getting angry and I recognized because it's not my personality. I'm usually bubbly and, I was laughing kind of thing. And I
Mhm.
was getting this anger and I felt this anger bubbling up like a pipe that's bursting open. And I sought out a therapist and she told me that, I had bottled down a couple of things. Like, when people do you something and you push it down and don't really look at it, and then when you're triggered, then it comes back up. So that's where my anger was hiding. Feels like if it's coming up from my stomach. But where does anger normally hide, and what is the source of it?
So to just comment on what you said, both repressing, because you're talking about repressing anger. So both repressing and expressing anger, surprisingly enough, expressing it like screaming and yelling and throwing hands and all that stuff. Both of them are not good for your physical health. So there's studies around that. As far as where it shows up in your body, for some people, I know for me, it was always my hair would stand on end. For some people, you might feel hot, or you might feel a burning in your chest. So it shows up for people in different ways. But one thing that we all have in common is that it makes us sick. So you hear a lot of people talk about stress related illness, stress related stress. Stress is bad for this, it's bad for the heart, it's bad for the cardiovascular system, all of these things. It can, I mean, even so far as creating cancer, causing cancer and all these kind of things. But what is stress? Stress is usually we're complaining, right? Complaining. If you ever want to check and see if you are angry and maybe you don't realize you are, check, see how often you're complaining about things, right?
Mm,
So anger makes us physically ill. It's the stress. Stress is a nicer word, but it's that feeling of things not happening the way that we want them to. Like that's the easiest definition for anger. We get angry when we don't get what we want. And when we really reflect on that, why do we think we're always supposed to get what we want? We're
right.
in a planet with 8 billion people. Maybe someone else will get what they want too. So a little bit of hyper focus on ourselves a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So the ego gets involved there.
There's one time I heard the definition of anger as um, you're feeling that someone doesn't have the right to do something. So, for instance, you mentioned somebody cutting you off. That's one of the things I never actually get angry by. I'm not a road rage person. I'm that calm, that person. But
Mhm.
I do think I would get angry if I feel that someone doesn't have the right to do something. What is your opinion of that?
It's fair, to feel. I mean, it's not that the feeling of anger itself is the problem because we're all going to have that feeling. It's what do you do once you have that feeling? For some people, and for many of us, we never learn what to do with it. So when the anger feeling comes, we either respond to it immediately in a way that's not going to be helpful to us, like, the descriptions we gave before, or you might end up just complaining all day, sitting on the sofa all day, being miserable, letting it impact you in that kind of way. So, yeah, that's kind of where
Okay.
that comes up.
All
Mhm.
right, so that's awesome. So we have some time. So let's talk about you said that you have a way to take the anger into tame and rational. So
Yeah.
what are some of the steps that I think you mentioned it though in the first.
Yeah, I mentioned the first couple. I can give you a few more because that's where it gets juicy. So the first couple are pretty easy, and it spells out anger, which is nice. So the
Mhm.
first one is acknowledge your anger. The second one is notice your breath. So you kind of want to breathe. The third I actually spoke about a little bit too, which is gear up your imagination so that you can actually think about someone besides yourself, all these other millions of people who are on the planet with us. But the next step is where it gets into action, right? Because we want to take our anger and turn it into constructive action Or sometimes we don't really have to do anything. We can just calm ourselves down. But I call it the three E's. So you either educate, entertain, or enlighten yourself. With the road rage type situation, somebody cuts you off, there's really nothing for you to do. You don't have to read a book to solve that problem. You can just entertain yourself, phone a friend, listen to a podcast, just do something else. You don't have to engage with that. But sometimes we have things that are serious that we have to engage with, like the example with the spouse,
Yeah.
where, that might be a situation where you do need to get educated. Maybe you need to figure out if you guys need to go into couples counseling. There could be mental health issues involved that you need to learn about. Maybe you need a coach, like you or me or someone like that. So that's where you decide how you're going to take action. And the last one is enlightenment, because some things are too big. Like right now, we have, huge social justice issues. We've got global poverty. We've got genocide, things that we can all maybe do a little part, but we're not going to solve the problem. So the enlightenment part is having some sort of spiritual connection that you develop with yourself. So however you practice that, whether you are a Christian or Buddhist or non-denominational, or you like to take walks in nature, or however you express that spirituality, if you're meditating, if you're doing yoga, things to nurture yourself. So that could be the action, to heal that part of yourself. Um, and it is 5 steps. It takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight. I always
Right.
recommend people start with the first two and practice those, and then see if you can kind of add on to it. The final step, which is the R, is to recognize your success, right? So anytime we want to change a habit, because, I know for me, I didn't know that there was anything I could do with my anger besides just get mad and act up. You know, so anytime you want to change a habit, you want to reinforce it. And that R is to recognize your success. So if you're someone who normally, when you get cut off in traffic, you get mad and you scream out the window, or you get mad and you talk about it all day, you might just talk about it all day and make everybody else mad with you for like a day or two.
Right.
So that's the thing you normally do. And then this time you say, you know what? I'm going to let it go. Maybe that person is, is having a baby or a heart attack. I don't know what they're doing. And I'm going to just listen to some nice music. Then you
Right.
recognize your success. You can
Yes.
just give yourself that acknowledgement like, hey, yeah, okay, I did a thing. I did something new. And I don't have to spend the next 48 hours being miserable. So
Right.
that's the full process. But,
Okay.
it takes a little time. But it's
Right.
simple. It's honestly simple.
Yes. And it's very true because the spirituality part of that is where you feed your soul, you feed your mind, you feed your energy, and you will become less and less angry because that's how I worked on mine because I meditate, I walk in the park, I do all these different things, and
Mhm.
and that stuff calms you down so people don't piss you off as much anymore. So
Yeah, my teachings are based in Buddhist philosophy and also in yogic philosophy, but it's the same. Most Christians don't realize that it's the same in Christian philosophy. You're not supposed to rise to anger. You know, I
right,
mean, I guess there can be confusion when everybody knows the expression "turn the other cheek,"
right,
right? And so sometimes folks will worry, well, if I'm not angry, people will walk all over me.
right,
But that's not what we're doing. I have very solid boundaries. I take care of things that need to be taken care of. You can do all the things you need to do without the anger. And even if you were to look at, and I have some of these information in the book, like prize fighters, Mike Tyson or, um, oh gosh, I can't think of his name right now. But even
Holyfield, all those guys, right? Yes,
Bruce Lee. But
right,
even like, fighters know that they cannot fight when they're angry. They
okay.
cannot do their best work when they're angry because they lose control.
It's
You need
true.
to be focused and
Yes,
calm,
yes,
and know what you're doing. So
that's very true. Right, yes, because it blinds you. And there's a saying that anger blinds you. Right, you don't see clear.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Even if someone were going to attack you or come into your home, you can protect yourself better when you maintain your calm.
Yes, right.
So it's always
Okay.
A way to, a way to take you down the wrong path.
So we've circled right back and we've answered the question. Anger is never useful.
It's
I
like a
like that
broken clock. It's like
because
accidentally useful, but it's never, you know.
right. We've answered the question. We've come around in the circle. Right. Yes.
Mhm.
Calm yourself down first, and then maybe that anger moved you to get up and become enlightened or spirituality or all the good things that educate yourself. But making decisions or in anger is always bad. So that's
And
amazing.
you can be moved by love, you can be moved by compassion, you can be moved by other emotions, other strong emotions, without being moved by anger. You can be moved by self-love, like in the example that you gave with the woman in a relationship. Be moved by self-love.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love myself, so I'm not going to put up with this. Right.
Exactly.
I love that. Awesome. All right. Well, your book sounds really interesting. So tell us about your book, The Anger Myth. And I'm assuming you go through all the myths about anger in there. So tell us about your book. Why did you write it? And what do you want readers to walk away with after they're finished reading?
Yeah, so it's the anger myth, understanding and overcoming the mental habits that steal your joy. And it started because I wrote a book called 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness. And I would do all these interviews, and people would say, "Oh, it's 12 steps. Nobody's got time for 12 steps, Trish. Give us one step." So they would say, "Well, what's the biggest one thing that people could do?" And to me, it's the anger is the one, like if you could master that one thing and you didn't do anything else, if you figured out how to not be always complaining because you're disappointed or you're annoyed or you're frustrated or you're jealous or you feel guilty or you just resent it, you have all these things that you're almost a victim of, a victim of your own emotions. If you could figure out how to manage that, that one thing alone would be hugely transformative in life. I know it was for me, and like you, I was never like a super angry person, but I had my stuff, and I didn't know what to do with it. I
Right.
just would,
Right.
because sometimes it even shows up like we talk about guilt here, and part of that was a decision not to use the word depression because depression is clinical and it's complicated. But when that anger is directed at yourself, like I didn't get as far as I thought I should have gotten, or I didn't do the things I should have done, or why does my life look the way it looked, you can really develop this kind of sadness in your life, you know? So it's just, if there's one thing that you could do, I think it's just the one most wonderful gift that you can give to yourself.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. Especially if you're somebody that always gets angry, because there's some people that been triggered by a lot of things. So, but yeah, if you get angry, once in a while, like me and you, then yeah.
But
All
it's more
right.
than the anger. It's that frustration, because you may not feel like you're angry, but you might be frustrated a lot, or annoyed a lot. So,
Right. Exactly.
mm,
Same thing. The seven cousins, right? So I'm glad that
yeah,
you clarified that because, people might be walking around and say, I'm not an anger person, but then you're right. They are, it's simmering below the surface for
they're
years
just unhappy.
because a lot of people harbor resentments for a long time. You're very right. Right.
They're unhappy and they don't know why. And
Yes.
it consumes so much of your time,
Right.
rehashing things or going over these negative emotions again and again. So
Mhm.
once you learn the process to kind of put it to bed, you have all
Right.
this free time where you can, I don't know, take up knitting or, or hiking or see something else.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're talking about knitting. That's what Michelle Obama did when she was angry. She started to knit.
Did she? I don't, was that in her book? I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's what she did. She
I'm sure
started
she did a lot of knitting. She did a lot of knitting.
right, exactly. All right. So tell our listeners where they can pick up a copy of your book, your website, your social media handles so they can follow you and keep in touch with this very big topic.
Yeah, so the easiest place to get my book is on Amazon. You can also find it in bookstores, Barnes and Noble. On my website. My website is my name, trishahjelroberts.com. It's a little bit of a mouthful. So if you do mindblowinghappiness.com, that also works. And on social media, it's my name everywhere, Trish Ahjel Roberts. Ahjel is Ahjel, and the rest is pretty easy to spell.
Yeah, which is why I didn't try pronouncing it because I did
I
not.
noticed. I
I,
noticed.
I just moved over it. All right. So that's amazing. All right. And I will have an article, which is a summary of my conversation with Trish on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will link out to her book on Amazon. I'll link out to her website as well as her social media. You said Instagram, correct? Or you're on them all?
You can pretty much find me everywhere: Facebook,
Everywhere.
Instagram,
Okay. Yeah.
TikTok.
Instagram is where it's at now, and that's where I spent most of my time. So I will
I love
link out
Instagram. Yeah.
on Instagram. All right. So you guys can follow her and pick up some more content on the anger myth and ways that you can, transform your anger. That's what our show is called, Transform Your Mind. Transform your anger into, something that you can work with so that you can, make decisions in a calm and, better place. And even though, anger can move you to move, right? We still want you to, once you've been motivated to move, to make the right choices. And in order to make the right choices, then you need to calm down. My dad said to me a long time ago, and I don't really even follow it because I'm not the type of person that likes to wait. But he said to me, never write. If somebody pisses you off and you want to write them a letter, wait until the next day and you calm down, but never respond immediately. And it's so hard for me to do because I want to respond right now.
Hmm.
And when you do
Yeah.
that, you say all the wrong things because you're operating out of emotion. And it's so
Hmm.
said, wait until the next day, wait until at night. So that's basically what we're saying here. Calm
You get the
yourself down.
angry typing.
Right. And no, I mean, but my personality is I gotta do it right now. I gotta do it when I'm feeling the anger.
You can write it now, but just don't hit send until the next day. And I want to share one more thing that I actually forgot to mention. So if you go on my website, or if you go on you could also go to theangermyth.com. There's a 2-minute quiz and you can find out your anger quotient. So that's a lot of fun. And it'll also give you a little cheat sheet as well to how to transform your anger.
Hey, great. Lots of tools. I love that. All right, guys. Well, listen, this was a fantastic conversation. We could have gone for another 30 minutes, but our time is up. So I want to thank Trish for coming on the show and talking about anger. It's an emotion that all of us feel, but if you're feeling it more than usual, then it's time to do something about it so that you can get your life back. The people around you are going to be happier because you're not constantly angry all the time. It's not good to be around an angry person, really. So yeah, go pick up a copy of her book and learn, educate yourself on how you can, you know, transform your anger into something better and more useful. All right, we want to thank Trish for being on the show. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Author's Corner, where we highlight and showcase our local authors. So thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.